This video is all about the classification of joints. Our classification begins with structural classification of joints. Structurally, the joints are classified into various types, that is, fibrous joint, cartilaginous joint, and synovial joint. Structurally, joints are classified into fibrous joint, and fibrous joint are subtyped into suturous joint, syndesmosis, and kyphosis. Cartilaginous joint. Cartilaginous joints are subdivided into primary cartilaginous joint and secondary cartilaginous joints. Synovial joints. Synovial joints are classified into ball and socket variety of synovial joint, saddle type of synovial joint, condylar variety of synovial joint, ellipsoid variety of synovial joint, hinge joint, pivot joint, and plane joint. So let's begin with the fibrous joints. The sutural joints are present only and only at the skull, and usually it is immovable because it is tightly bound with fibrous tissue. And according to the margins of the bones, the sutural joints are subclassified into plane, serrate, squamous, denticulate, and syndesmosis. Neonates doesn't have the sutures like adults have. They have the typically empty space termed as fontanelles. There are total 6 fontanelles present in the head, and it is not permanent. It is temporary in nature. It replaces by the 18 months it disappears and converted to the sutures. They have 6 fontanelles, 1 anterior fontanelle, 1 posterior fontanelle, 2 anterolateral fontanelle, 2 posterolateral fontanelle or masted fontanelle. Clinically, the anterior fontanelle is most important because it is judged to check the hydration in neonates. Syndesmosis means it is a fibrous membrane between the two bones. It is termed as syndesmosis joint. Typically, there is an example of an introsseous membrane which lies between the radius and ulna bone. Other example of syndesmosis is talocalcaneal ligament. Now, kyphosis. Kyphosis means it is a joint between two bones. And typical example of kyphosis is the tooth and socket. Socket and tooth is typical example of kyphosis type of joint. Cartilaginous joint. In cartilaginous joint, the bones are connected by the cartilage. Cartilaginous joints are subdivided into primary cartilaginous joint, which is also known as synchondrosis, and secondary cartilaginous joint, which is termed as synostosis. Synchondrosis means it is a chondroid type of deposit, and in secondary cartilage it is replaced by the osteoid. So it is called as synostosis. So primary cartilaginous joint, it is also known as hyaline cartilaginous joint because it has a presence of hyaline cartilage. It is immovable in nature and it is temporary because it is soon replaced by the synostosis type of joint. Synchondrosis is converted into synostosis. That is replacement of the chondroid material with the osteoid material is termed as a synostosis. Example of primary cartilaginous joints is the joint between epiphysis and diaphysis of long growing bone, costochondral joint, and the spino-occipital joint. Secondary cartilaginous joint. It is also known as a secondary cartilaginous joint is also known as a fibrocartilaginous joint or symphysis because it is permanent in nature and persists lifelong. Secondary cartilaginous joints are mostly present along the medial axis of skeleton. The example of secondary cartilaginous joints are symphysis pubis, intervertebral joint, and mandibular joint. Synovial joint is the most evolved type of joint and it has a multiple axis rotation. It means it has possibility of all the rotation in this joint. It is the most mobile type of a joint, have fluid filled cavity called the synovial fluid. The synovial fluid provides the smooth rotation and smooth movement across joint. Again, the synovial joints are subclassified according to the movement taking place in their axis. So first is plane synovial joint. The name itself suggests that plane synovial joint. It has a flat articulation surface. The example of plane synovial joint are intercarpal joint, intertarsal joint, sacroiliac joint, intermetacarpal joint, carpometacarpal joint, hinge joint. In the hinge joint, the articular surfaces are pulley shaped. Movements are permitted in one transverse axis. The example of hinge joint are elbow joint, ankle joint, interphalangeal joint. In elbow joint, the olecranon process of the ulna covers the lower portion of a humerus. It's formed like a pulley. Pivot joint. In pivot joint, the articular surface forms ring. That is, a cylinder-shaped bone rotates inside a ring, and the ring is osteoligamentous ring. It is called a pivot joint. Here, the movement is taking place in one axis around vertical axis. The example of a pivot joint are superior and inferior radioulnar joint and median atlantoaxial joint. Condylar variety of synovial joint. In condylar variety of synovial joint, there is a typical process of condyles. Condyles provide movements greatly in one plane, that is transverse axis mainly, and slightly some rotational movements in another plane. Like for example, in knee joint, the transverse axis, the flexion and extension takes place, and rotation, that is medial rotation of femur around tibia, that is locking and unlocking of knee joint. Example of condylar variety of synovial joint are knee joint and temporomandibular joint. Now comes with ellipsoid variety of synovial joint. In ellipsoid variety of synovial joint, there is articular surface having convex and concave fitting reciprocal surfaces. The free movements are taking place around both major axes, that is, the flexion and extension taking place in transverse axis, and abduction and adduction at anterior posterior axis of bone. And remember one thing here is no rotational movement takes place freely. Example of ellipsoid type of synovial joint are wrist joint, metacarpophalangeal joint, atlanto-occipital joints. Now the saddle variety of synovial joint. The saddle variety of synovial joint is similar as ellipsoid joint. The difference is here the rotation takes place, and in ellipsoid type of joint the rotation is inhibited, and articular surface is concave convex reciprocally fitted to each other. The example of saddle joint are first metacarpal joint, sternoclavicular joint, femur and patella, and incudiomalleolar joint. Now ball and socket variety of synovial joint. Articular surface includes the globular head fitted into the cup-shaped socket. Here the movements are taking place at indefinite axis. I repeat, indefinite axis, which has a common central point. Examples of ball and socket variety of synovial joints are shoulder joint, hip joint, talocalconavicular joint, and incrustapetal joint. Incrustapetal joint is one which is encircled with black, and don't confuse it with incudiomalleolar joint, which is example of saddle variety of synovial joint.